Hi everyone, this is Jordan Dalal from AFX, and today we are going to do the Captain Marvel Energy Charge Up in After Effects. Let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is go to our file and we're going to drag it into a new comp. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to motion track the face. So to do this, we're going to draw an oval over the video, over her face, and then we're going to track that mask. Now, first thing is I'm going to line up the video to where I want it. So I'm just going to trim it and drag it over. And then I'm going to take the ellipse tool and I'm going to draw an oval around it. I'm just going to move this actually just a little bit further on until she's moving her head upwards. There we are. Okay, and I'm going to draw that oval. Okay, I'm just going to adjust it so it includes all the information we want. Okay, perfect. So what we're going to do is select the mask and we're going to right-click Track Mask. Then we're going to go over to our tracker and make sure that we're on Face Tracking Detailed Features. And we're going to hit Forward. So what this is going to do, this is going to give us all the tracking data that we want, specifically for the eyes. So for the energy charge up effect, those eyes become a white glowing effect. So we're going to be adding an animation of the eyes first. Okay, now that that's done tracking, we're going to go to our mask and click None. Okay, now we're going to, actually we're just going to quickly color correct this. So we're going to go down to Effects, Color Correction, Curves. And we'll bring down the black slightly, but we're going to bring up these whites quite a bit. And then we're just going to add a little bit of that red and bring down the blue channel. Bring that red channel up a little bit more. Perfect. Okay, so let's go back to our tracking. So what we're going to do is to create the glowing eye effect, we're going to go to Layer, New, Solid. We're going to make it white. And we're going to name this L-I. Okay, perfect. We're going to take down the opacity to 0. And then we're going to draw a mask over the left eye. Okay, once that's done, we can drag up our opacity and let's bring it up to 75. And we're going to take the transfer mode and make it overlay. And we're going to pull up the feather of the mask. You can hit F on your keyboard. And we're going to feather it by 30 pixels. Okay. Then we're going to pull up the position. And we're going to click on our plate. And here are the face tracking points that we did earlier. So what we're going to do is collapse the left eye tracking data. And we're looking for the left pupil. So we're going to pick whip our LI layer to the left pupil. So this has moved our mask, unfortunately, a little bit upwards. So we're going to drag this back down. And let's see how that animates in. We may have to add some mask points because it might not be a perfect track. But this looks pretty good. Okay, great. So what we're going to do now is we're going to duplicate it and we're going to delete that mask. And then we're going to draw around her iris. So we're trying to create some subtle shape of glow. So it sort of gets bright in the middle and fades to the edges of her eye. Actually, we're gonna change the transfer mode to add. And then let's feather this by 50. Okay, cool. Then we're going to duplicate it and we're going to scale it down. Perfect. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a flare. So I have this little flare. I'm going to drag it down, change the transfer mode to add, and we're going to pull up that position, select our plate, and we're going to connect it to the left pupil. Okay, I'm just going to rotate it so it matches the angle of her face. And we'll scale this up to 200. And then we'll die down the opacity to, let's say, 50. Okay, perfect. Okay, so next thing we got to do is just duplicate it for the right eye. So we'll quickly do that. So we'll do layer new solid, and we'll call this our eye. Hit OK. Die down the opacity to 0. We'll draw a mask around her right eye. Bring the opacity up to 75. And we're going to pull up our position and we're going to connect it to the right pupil this time. So we'll take our pick whip and connect it. And we've got to move our mask over. Okay, great. Now we're going to feather it by 30 pixels and change the transfer mode to overlay. And then we duplicate it, delete the mask, and we'll draw a shape around the iris. And we'll change the transfer mode to add, and we'll feather it by 50. Then we're going to duplicate it and we'll scale it down. Okay, and then what we're going to do is duplicate that flare, pull up the position, select our plate, and connect it to the right pupil. There we got it, we got our eyes. The next thing we want to do is create a glow around the eye, the outer eye, and the cheeks, because the eyes right now are acting like a light source. So we want to illuminate that area a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new solid, and we'll call this L cheek. We'll die down the opacity to 0. And let's connect it. You know what? We might want to go with the nose just because we're in that sort of area and not really near the sides of the cheek. So let's do the nose bridge. So what we're going to do is we've got our position. We're going to pull up the position for our L cheek, select our plate, and then we're going to pick whip it to the nose bridge. Okay. Now I'm going to draw a mask around the left side. Make sure it highlights a little bit of the nose and a little bit of the cheek, but not too far, just where it looks like the light is hitting. Okay, I'm going to bring up that opacity back to, let's say, 50, and we're going to change it to overlay. And we're going to feather it by, let's say, 50. Okay, that looks good. Then we're going to duplicate it, and let's delete that mask. And we're going to make sort of a smaller one, so with more concentrated glow as it fades out. And then we'll feather this, let's say also by 50. Okay. Okay, let's make sure that that's tracking okay. There's a little bit that's just not, it's going a little too low on the cheek. But it's not bad. So here, let's just animate it a little bit in. So we're gonna hit the M on the mask, and I'm just going to bring that up a little bit. Okay. Okay, great. So next thing we're gonna do is put it on the right cheek. So we're gonna duplicate this, and then we're gonna label it our cheek. And our cheek. Okay, cool. And then let's just delete the masks. And we'll draw a new mask. Feather it by 50. Then we'll draw our inner glow around the eye. And we'll feather it by 50. Let's make this a little bit bigger. Okay, perfect. So now we have our glow. The next thing we want to do is to create that energy charge up effect. So what we're going to do is we're going to create layer, new, solid, and we're going to make it black. We're going to label this energy. Okay, then we're going to go to effect, noise, turbulent noise. We're going to change our fractal type to dynamic progressive. We're going to invert it. Then we're going to bring up our contrast quite a bit. So let's make it, let's say 575. And we'll bring down our brightness to -35. Then we're going to bring down our transform, and we're going to scale this up a bit. So let's change that to 350. And then we're going to bring down the subsettings, the subscaling down to 40. Okay, now we're going to animate the evolution. So the energy charge up is moving quite quickly. So we want to add a few rotations to that. So let's change the evolution to 5. Actually, let's bring that up to 7 full evolutions. We'll preview that. So it's moving quite quickly. And that should do it. All right, so then we want to do is we want to pre-compose this. And we'll just call it energy 1. Okay, now we're going to change the transfer mode to add. Okay, and then we're going to die down the opacity to 0. And we're going to draw a mask around her hair. So what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to outline the hair as best as I can, the shape, just to create a little bit of dimension. So I'm gonna make sure that's kind of just on the surface. Okay, great. All right, we'll bring up our opacity. Okay, and then we're gonna pull up our position. And let's try clicking on our plate, and we'll connect it to the bridge again. Let's try that. We'll have to move our mask down. Let's feather this 50. Okay, let's try this. Let's see how this works. Okay, great. That was looking pretty good. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a fastbox blur. So we'll go down to Effects, Blur, and we'll up it to 3. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a second energy. So we're going to go to Layer, New, Solid, and we'll call this Energy 2. So we've got the big energy swirling shapes. Now we want the little like electrical firing shapes. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Effect, Noise, Turbulent Noise, and we'll go to our fractal type, and we're going to make it swirly. Let's try also scaling it up a bit. So let's say 110. And we're also going to add some contrast to this. Let's say also 500. We're going to want to invert this as well. And let's bring the brightness down to -30. Let's leave it at 0 maybe. All right, we're going to leave it at 0. Okay, now we're going to animate the evolution, and we'll do the same amount. We'll do 7 times. We're going to animate it again, and the evolution, and we're going to animate it 7 times. Now that we've got the evolution, we're going to change the transfer mode to add, and we're going to dial down the opacity to 0. We're going to pull up the position, and we're going to connect it to the nose bridge again. So we're going to go down to our plate, drag the pick whip to the nose bridge. Then we're going to pull up our opacity, and we're going to draw a mask around the edges of her head. Okay, great. We're going to feather that by 50. And let's preview that. Now that we've got that done, we're going to pre-compose the comp. And we'll name this Face Comp 1. We'll hit OK. All right, now we're going to add an adjustment layer. And we're going to add a glow. So stylize glow. And then we're going to change it to 90% for the glow threshold. We'll change it to 90%. We're going to change the glow radius up to 350. And then we're going to duplicate. And let's give that a preview. And there we go. So there's a few things you might want to add. We could add in some of those flares, and we can scale it up, change the transfer mode to add, die down the opacity, let's say to 75%, add a blur to it. Add it to 4. And we can sort of fade it in. Can add a couple of these maybe around. The glow might be a bit intense, so let's try upping that to 95%. Let's change the transfer mode maybe to screen. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, so again, you can play around with the glow settings, but you can kind of get the effect. It looks pretty cool. If you want to animate some of the noise onto her shirt, you could do that, or into the background. I'd like to thank everyone for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. Stay tuned for more tutorials. I'm Jordan Dell'Ella. Thanks for watching.